Welcome back to Cantina Chronicles. This week, we are lounging in the spas of Lanupa and talking Skeleton Crew Episode 5. You have a lot to learn about pirates.
Indeed.
Just off screen, we have Catholips. He's a little shy today, but he just wants to listen today.
Can we just spend the entire episode talking about Catholips, where I laughed out loud in bed while I was watching this when the name was said, and then my wife, when we were watching it 2 days later, she also laughed out loud. So I'm like, okay, good, we get each other.
I mean, you guys want to meet him, just come to my basement. Come on over. We can walk downstairs. And we can say hi.
Say hi to Catholips. Share some stories.
Yeah. Before we get there, I was on YouTube because I was about to open up our live stream to see if we have any voices today, and I think I found the best use for AI ever. There is a 5K 60 FPS upscale of the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Woof.
And I'm looking at it right now, and it looks beautiful. And I may have found what my afternoon tomorrow looks like.
Oh my gosh, share that link. Definitely.
In the show notes, you will have the link for
that looks beautiful.
high-res holiday special, like you've never seen it before.
Was there a Life Day reference in the treasure trove? Maybe we'll save that for the end and talk about.
Oh, we really should talk about Easter eggs in the treasure trove. But
yeah, for sure.
That's actually a big part of the sort of the overall summary of this episode, which is sort of like going to a new world to find the the trove of Smee's previous captain, which was very cool. And it happens to be a spa world, which was
it's now exciting. A spa world.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Bermuda, right? It was like used to be a pirate enclave, or Nassau, right? It was like a pirate enclave.
Yeah,
rich people live there and hide their money there, which pirates did too. Which is, well, you get the idea.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was getting Indiana Jones vibes in that, but we'll talk about that
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of both. It was like, it's a pirate treasure trove, but it was like 110% Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Indiana Jones, Goonies, like that's what they're doing. They're just mixing a lot of flavors together. But yeah, absolutely Indiana Jones in there. Definitely Last Crusade vibes.
Oh yeah.
Did you guys like the episode? Did you have a fun ride on this one? It was wild.
I'll go first. My favorite episode of the season so far. I love this episode. I almost watched it twice in a row, which is not like me.
Wow.
But then I fell asleep and I'm like, no, I watched it Christmas Eve because I'm like, I have to watch it before it gets ruined. So Christmas Eve was already late, and then I watched it in bed before I fell asleep. But I super loved it, and then watched it happily with Carly again last night, and I was just the show kind of did everything. This episode did everything I kind of wanted in an episode.
Yeah.
Where it like moved the plot forward a little bit, left still a lot of questions, gave you some hints, and it was just fun. And like Smee going like the running gag of Smee. I
with the restraining bolt or with the towels, the spa towels, because the spa towels landed for me every time too.
The restraining bolt, the constant background commentary of him on the Lanupa, and I'm like, I just love Lanupa. I love the fact we get a Kelly MacDonald, who I like is like a teenage crush of mine, like showing up suddenly as this like, I'm gonna just say it, very attractive to me, weird alien person with a Scottish accent, and I'm like, I am 100% on board for this. So yeah, favorite episode for me.
It's like the same species as Solandra's show, which I don't think Solandra's show has a. Wait, no, Imri, no, it's not Solandra's show. That's the Shield Maiden. Who am I thinking of? Elzar Mann's BFF. Oh man, I'm so sorry. Worst Star Wars fan. Anyways, see you later. Anyways, a sort of all-white species, white eyes, white skin, white hair, but reminded me of a High Republic character that I'm going to stop talking and Google.
Yeah. No, I thought that character was quite affecting, and I really felt like I wanted to give a big shout out to Jude Law in terms of like his acting in this episode, and sort of like the fear that is sort of takes place and sort of his wariness of, oh, there's now a bounty hunter on our tail. We need to lock down this suite. We need to get out of here as soon as possible. We need to find the pirate trove before we get caught. And I really liked the sort of ticking clock sort of tension that he brought to this particular episode. So I agree. I think it was a fun episode, and I love seeing a kind of repurposed pirate, hideaway turned spa. Like, that's a very cool idea. And it was cool to see just how the New Republic has sort of blended into the holistic feel of the galaxy, where it's like now these guys, like the security guard of this planet sort of looks like, rebel soldiers or Republic. You would think New Republic sort of soldiers at this point. I just think the world building was great. And I really like the Lanupa sort of world that we're explore.
Yeah, it was also the longest episode of the... it was actually just as long as the first episode, a little bit longer. Yeah. So that's why I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
And it really did sort of... It really did travel well. And they did the thing where I love with that, with episode length. This felt the appropriate length.
Yeah. Like, it needed this room to breathe. There was a lot going on. And back to Jude Law for a second. Like, the other thing I love about this episode is we get every style of Jude Law in this episode, because he's playing so many different characters and just talking to so many different people. Like, again, where he's just like tough but fair when he gets handed a cocktail. I'm like, this is...
I think we get two new aliases too, Dash Zenton and Jodwick Zank. More names are sort of dropped in terms of people relating to him, and I think he's just used a different name for almost every job he's done, and I can't wait towards like the end of our conversation, sort of theorizing about Jodna Nawood and sort of where he could have come from, and what's his real name, and who is he, and where is he going in this story? Because there's even more setup towards a Jedi history in this episode that I can't wait to talk to you guys about.
Yeah. I love reading his Wikipedia page, because it says John Wood was a force-sensitive human male pirate during the New Republic era who operated under many aliases such as Crimson Jack, Silvo the Mad Captain, Gas Zentor, or Jodwick Zank. I love every week that one sentence keeps growing. Yeah,
it's very cool. We even hear a very familiar line, which I think we erupted into texts over, which was your focus determines your reality, which is a Qui-Gon Jinn direct pull that sort of Jod says to Wim at some point, pulling him aside, which was, I think, a nod to us, the audience, in that Jod is sort of rehearsed in Jedi teachings and that sort of understands Jedi sayings, at least, or has heard them before, and what does that mean, essentially, and where are we going to come to at the end of sort of, maybe not this episode, but the next episode, like, do we think he's a Jedi? Do we think there's some sort of, past with the Jedi Order? Very interesting stuff.
And we have a pretty good tell. I was going to say a telling tell, but that's repetitive, of what's going on At Attin. Like, they
they really fully reveal, basically
showed their hands in this episode, which is like not one of my theories, but one of your both theories nailed it on its head, I think. But we can get there a little later.
Yeah. Do we want to start a little closer to the beginning? By the way, Orla Jareni was the name I was trying to think.
Orla Jareni.
And Umbaran, there is a species, and it's Umbaran, actually.
Definitely looks a lot like that. Yeah.
And that's Pocket. You're talking about the bounty hunter.
Talking about Pocket.
Yep, Pocket.
Yeah. She's love nice in the pocket.
Yep.
I mean, so, hey, we see the parents again, they're doing things back home, trying to get their kids back. This is only the second time we've sort of flashed back to them panicking, but there's like a plan in place, and there's different factions, but the factions come together. We get to see how awkward Wim's dad is. I thought that acting was fantastic, because you're like, oh yeah, that's Wim's dad for sure.
Yeah. Have we also? I mean, I think we've named him. Have we called out that that's the lead singer of TV on the Radio? That actor.
I did not know that.
Yeah, who I've been listening to a lot of TV on the radio since I noticed that was him. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's who that is.
Tunde,
what am I? Adebembe. Yeah, I think so.
You did mention that earlier. Yeah. I don't listen to that band too often, but I should give him a try. I've heard they're great.
He's so
I like
good.
Him. They're not my favorite.
I just love what he's bringing to the show as well. Which is
him
fretting these kids is probably like. I think the one parent we get to really key in on and sort of see the sort of emotion with the kids, and I think he's doing a great job. It's like I'm worried about the kids. I'm worried about the kids getting back. And at this point, at the end of this episode, we'll talk about it. I'm worried about Jod and what he represents for the kids, and if he's not just the straight up villain for this show. Right. Because we can talk about that endlessly at the end of the episode, which I think we'll come to a shared idea that maybe he's not the villain, but they're definitely at the end of this episode.
I'm not worried.
He's kind of pitted as the pure antagonist to the kids, which is really fun.
Yeah. That's definitely where they leave it for sure. But we'll talk. We'll talk when we get there.
Right. And then we have Carrie Condon sort of comes around. Mm-hmm. She was like, no, I'm going to go through the main channels and blah blah blah, and and Wim's dad's just sort of like, how far has that gotten us? And she's like, yeah, you're right. Like, whatever.
It is such an affecting scene when the droid is sort of encroaching on him as he's slicing and basically senses a energy surge in his terminal, which is
yes,
that was high stakes.
Yeah, everything about that scene was just so fun.
That was to me the most stressful scene of the entire episode. I don't know why. I was really stressed by that.
Yeah.
Just something about being in a cubicle and being confronted by your supervisor. I'm like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah. It's a lot more relatable than being chased in a like first world spa mud bath by pirates.
The colonists, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Beheading, decapitating lasers. Great. No worries.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to talk about the booby traps in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Really fun.
Booby traps.
Definitely thought that when I saw some stuff happen in this episode.
Did you notice that like Carrie Condon did the exact same thing as her daughter did in the first episode, where she like just like overrode the droid with her like voice commands at the end? She's just like shut down. You saw nothing. Shut down. And
that was key. That was key towards them talking to each other.
Yeah. So Vern's a smart girl. Picked it up from her mom's. That was kind of interesting to see that. We see Wim starting to crack a little bit. This is maybe getting to be too much adventure. That was kind of a shock to me. I was like, I thought he'd still be eating this all up, but I don't know. Apparently it's getting to him. He's still a kid.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, right? Because I feel like that's, most kids think they want something like that, and then when they're exposed to it, it's too much for them, and they'll come up. I mean, it's like, not to put it all about, into the refusing the call, but that's kind of the refusing the call you get as a kid, right? Like that's how a kid refused the call. It's scared too much, and like the favorite thing is the very end where he stands up, and then when it fails, like one of the most heartbreaking, like I almost like got choked up, was when he just ran and slid and hid next to the other friends. It was so real, like that moment of like I did my courage, it didn't work, and now I'm just terrified.
But that was a perfect scene, honestly, and I can see why this was maybe your favorite episode, Adam. That scene in particular just felt like iconic. Like at some point, someone was going to have to, do that action in a way that you haven't seen before, and it was truly just traumatizing for the kid, I imagine, and it really plays homage to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Alec Guinness and those lines about how deft one must be to wield a lightsaber. I really like that stuff quite a bit.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
I know.
So
I know. We're trying to force it.
Great scene again with Jod. I know you guys touched on it a second ago, but like he doesn't want to comfort the kid. I love that he sees him crying and he's like, ugh, what do I do here? And like is trying to get away from him.
Oh yeah, he gives him Jedi teachings in sort of a atypical format. It's sort of out of context. It's outside the context we normally see this sort of advice given to fellow Jedi. It's this foregoing attachment sort of theme that he really wants to explain to Wim when Wim is kind of feeling the hardship, and it's just that it's delivered to Wim, a young person, growing up in the galaxy in a way that we've never seen before, which I thought was incredibly iconic and incredibly interesting and compelling, but also like bad advice at the wrong time and not for the right reasons either, which is it just felt like the Jedi maybe a Jedi explaining this to another Jedi makes sense. It's a sort of monkhood. It's a sort of exploration of selflessness, and in this case, it just seems like he was just trying to eliminate Wim's emotions, so they could better handle the adventure that they're currently.
Yeah. I want to say two things about that. One, the thing I like about him not wanting to, the thing is he sees Wim leave, right? Mm-hmm. he decides to go after him, right? Which I think is an interesting telling thing.
Didn't he get kicked out of the cockpit, though? Or was that the last episode?
I think that was the last episode.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So he decides to go after him. He hears the thing about him and just kind of says, like, I can't remember what he says, like some throwaway line, turns around, and that's when Wim says, but not my mom, right? And you see him stop. Yeah. By the way, it's the same action he does at the very end of the episode. You see behind him, you don't see what he's thinking, but you tell he's thinking about something, turns around and reacts to it. So it's very telling to me that you get both those scenes of him turning his back to the camera and then turning back around.
Interesting. I didn't catch a parallel with those at all. Okay. Yeah, but you're right.
And so, and I think it's interesting. So he decides to come back again. So he made two decisions to actually talk to this kid when he didn't necessarily have to.
We didn't want to.
Which I think is didn't want to, but did. And then the attachment thing I loved, because I'm like, this is what I'm saying. Like, this is the problem with this teachings, is if you don't have any nuance to it, right, this is what you get, is you take it to its logical conclusion, which is I don't care about anyone. I cut everyone out of my life, and I just do what's good for me, right? And I love that you take this kind of a perversion of that no attachments teaching. Yeah.
I mean, I actually thought he was doing his best there. Like, he was like, obviously, like, I don't know how to deal with kids. I don't want to deal with this. And, you know, but then he drops his dead mother on him, and he's like, there's like no escaping this. I have to, like, all right, what am I going to do? And then, I mean, I think he looks at Wim. He's got him read. He knows he loves the Jedi. He loves the stories, the teaching. And so he gives him what he knows, which is actual Jedi teaching, and just gives him what he's got. He's like, all right, you know, you want the real stuff? I'll give you the real stuff. And it's, you know, it's ham-fisted. It's like he just said, forget everyone. You know, which is like not a nuance, or like you guys are saying, like not a nuanced way to sort of slap it down on him. But he's like, that's it. You need to forget about everybody, forget, you know, and have no attachments. Attachments are bad. That's the, you know, that's just going to hold you down. You've got to do whatever.
Which is,
but he does
what we see in his past. Sorry.
But he softens it with some compliments, and he's like, listen, you are good at things. Your imagination, which I like that they highlighted there, but and then, you know, and then gives him the Qui-Gon Jinn to Anakin Skywalker line. Your focus determines your reality. Your focus determines your reality, which I'm pretty sure Qui-Gon tells Anakin on Tatooine before they sort of blast off.
And to me, that was sort of, I definitely felt the sort of writer behind the scenes when that happened. And I then thought to myself, is this just more red herring, sort of false bait towards Jod being a Jedi? Is this just like trying to push as much Jedi doctrine at us as possible from Jod, to the point where we're like, oh yeah, there's definitely some sort of relation to the Jedi with this character, because these are again are verbatim quotes from Jedi masters of the past.
To me, that, you know, it can be one of two things, but I really think it means they're trying to tell us that he was trained by the Jedi. He was a trained Jedi.
But I still, the sort of my writer side wants him to be a scoundrel with the Force, because I think that's the one avenue we haven't yet seen. And it's like, why can't he be a Jedi in the eyes of this kid for one tale? Is sort of why isn't that allowed? I feel like that's totally allowed, and that's totally nuanced. Whereas if he's an Obi-Wan Kanan type, that's a whole thing. Jedi in hiding, you know, post the fall. I think that's well explored. I think we haven't seen really someone who maybe would have been Obi-Wan Kenobi, but there's no Jedi orders to take him. Like, to me, that's the most interesting way to go with the character.
That's the second way that I was thinking of, is that like maybe he was literally Wim. He was a Jedi super fan and learned as much as he could, but never got found. And is just sort of
it's so funny
his whole life. But I mean, he is that Jedi scoundrel that you're talking about, Grant. Like he has the Force. He is absolutely a pirate scoundrel, bounty hunter, like, you know, scum from that travels port to port in the galaxy. That's what he is now. But it's like what they decide to do with his past will be interesting, no matter which way they go, to me, anyways.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and I'm leaning more towards Grant's idea, and I'll talk about why, but my thought just was like, you know what, we see in episode 1, which was like directly referenced in this episode, that Anakin was too old he is, right? And then Anakin gets special dispensation, right, to be trained. So what if Jod grew up in this whatever war-torn area, right, because we hear about his homeworld. The Jedi find him when he's 10, and they're like, sorry, nope, too old, right? So maybe he did have, it's maybe not they found him, but they found him, and they were so stringent about this age thing, so he just didn't ever get trained, right? And Grant, like part of what I'm thinking is, so here's the thing. Like, I don't know if he's a Jedi super fan, but he's someone who uses the Force. He learns about a lot of different ways because he has to talk his way out of stuff. And he's now said two things in about a span of 10 minutes, not even a span of 2 minutes, that are just surface level Jedi stuff, which is he learned that they don't like attachments. So he's taken that on as a way to life. He figured out to do it. And he said, like, it'd be like saying to something, the only thing to fear is fear itself, right? Which is just a line that you know, right, because it's a very famous line from a president, right? So he just sputtered this very famous line that he knows because maybe it's gotten written up in the history books. You know what I mean? Like maybe he's just saying it to keep Wim with him, right? To try to convince him. But it is very surface level. Like, he's not said anything deep that I've seen in this entire show that seems like a Jedi.
He's clearly not a super fan kind of now, you know. But like maybe when he was a kid, it was something that he wanted. But you're right. Maybe he just picked it up along the way.
Yeah, I couldn't stop thinking about Obi-Wan Kenobi in this episode and comparing Jadna Nodwood to Obi-Wan Kenobi. Just, I mean, like, if you were to you know, you would never do this, but if you were to recreate A New Hope today, I think Jude Law would be up there with sort of the Obi-Wan Kenobi casting.
Oh, sure.
Right. Like, and to me, it's just like, I just think that's a huge blind spot for us. I mean, we're obviously thinking about sort of pirates from literature and trying to compare the character to so many other archetypes that we know about. But I think there's just the low-hanging fruit idea of, like, this is almost like Obi-Wan Kenobi if he were not a Jedi, essentially. If it was just like essentially like a rogue kind of character, yet it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like, he hates droids. It's like there's a lot of the same call signs as the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, and then he's even spouting out the teachings of Qui-Gon Jinn. It's almost like all these really, really kind of fun nods to what if Obi-Wan Kenobi wasn't a Jedi and just sort of someone who was undiscovered Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's sort of like undiscovered Obi-Wan Kenobi was kind of going through my mind over and over again as I watched this episode, and sort of morally bankrupt Obi-Wan Kenobi, someone who's completely fallen from the graces of being a heroic figure and sort of, you know, obviously we'll talk about some darker stuff that happens with Jod later in the episode and sort of the end of the episode and sort of where it places him with the kids. So to me it was just like anti-hero Obi-Wan Kenobi was sort of what was going through my mind.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't think that, but I totally now see that, and I think that's a really, really interesting take.
We talked about that in the first couple of episodes. I think that is kind of what he evokes. I think in our first coverage of the first two, like could be the thing. You definitely feel it, and even like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series where Kenobi sort of finds himself over the course of the series, like refines himself. I wonder, they don't want to. That's been done, right? So probably. Writerly, you don't want to do that again.
Probably be a Jedi in the eyes of Wim for this tale.
Yeah.
And then move on and be an epic pirate. And either, I hope he survives the story. I mean, there's a case for a sacrifice play or redemption into sacrifice situation. But I would almost love a wink and a nod, and he goes off to being a pirate for the long run. And it's just out there in the galaxy.
Yeah. I think you get a sacrifice play, but I don't think it's death. I think he sacrifices himself to be back in jail at the very end of this thing. I think he saves the kids. The New Republic arrest him because of his long things, put him in jail, and then there'll be a post thing of he immediately escapes, right? Or he's already working on his escape. Like I think it's very like a Jack Sparrow type
like
of thing,
Outlaws.
right? Where he just ends. Yeah, a little bit Outlaws. Yeah, totally.
I played a little Outlaws today.
Nice.
Yeah.
The gaming corner at the end.
Yeah, I didn't play that much. I was just trying to get the controls down again. Raid some treasure chests.
Are we going to talk about Lanupa?
Yeah, let's talk about Lanupa. I love Lanupa.
Yeah.
God, I mean, I would dock here anytime. Like this is fantastic.
I don't think I could afford to dock there, but yeah, it looks like a great place.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some Old Republic, credits to go around, but
or be in the banking clan.
Right.
I know.
And seeing some Ithorians taking mud baths was like,
gross and awesome at the same time.
So good.
Yeah. I mean, the little hut joke, right? With the hut.
Please, no, not again, please.
Yeah.
No, sir. And just so not even like upset. Just no. Yeah. Please not.
Not again.
Like,
I know, and I'm like, all right, because like that could have been a really dark scene. And I was like, oh no, you're not gonna do that. You're not. But like, I think the fact that he said not again is like, okay, he survived it once. Hopefully he'll survive it again.
Let's not try to figure out how he survives. But yeah.
Don't really want to know that. But
nope.
yeah, that's
I also
that was
love
a good bit.
A treasure hunt through the sort of like mists and steam of like a spa. Yeah. Like that is so fun to me, and I love when sort of. And this is a big episode for Smee. I mean, like Smee is just I didn't realize how much SM33 is going to be in the show, and it's apparently a lot, and I'm loving everything from 33. It's like it's some of my favorite stuff. Just the hunting, the symbol, all that stuff. So cool.
Yeah, and shout out to Nick Frost again, because the voice acting is great, because the way he's able to be a droid and also show regret in a lot of his like funny, but like when at the very end where he's like, I'm sorry, but this is what I have to do. I love it. Also the joke at the very beginning where they're tying him up with a rope, and he just immediately sits up and breaks all the ropes.
Yeah, that was a great bit.
That's just a great.
That was such.
Just a good gag.
There was a lot of good jokes there.
That was great.
And Lanupa, I love because I love when you go to a prosperous world in Star Wars, because we so rarely see that, and I just am fascinated by like what does that look like in this galaxy, and then. It's a totally like great. You're saying with the steam and the mud baths, like they gave us a different location. I just love when they give us something new and something different that still feels Star Wars-y. And also this completely went against where we thought this show was going, right? We thought they would go to the other At Attin clones worlds, right?
Yeah.
And when they were going here, I'm like, I was kind of relieved in a way. Like, nope, they found a way that we don't need to just do this. We're just, we're gonna go find,
a different way to get
a different place,
right? The old captain sort of booty or whatever they're hunting for.
Captain Renaud.
That's what this show's done a lot, is like a lot of surprising zigs when you think they're gonna zag,
but yet it's all remains sort of classic pirate
tropes,
which is great. And sort of I'm not really I think when we discuss this stuff, I think we're missing some of the obvious sort of maybe pirate things that the story's going to have to go through until we get to the end, which is also the At Attin, and sort of, and I think we're almost there, but we will talk about sort of what At Attin is now that we know what it is, and sort of what the purpose of the planet is, which is a sort of a mint facilitating the galaxy with credits.
Old Republic mint. The last Old Republic mint is what it has there, which is interesting. We're starting to get some of these answers. Like I nerdily wrote down the like big questions, and I actually only had 4, but I had to extend it to 5 because in my headcanon the captain has become the supervisor. I don't know why. Like early I planted that in my mind, but that's not necessarily true. So my questions are, who is Jod in relation to the Jedi, right? Like whatever. What are the jewels of the Republic? So it's like, what are these like 6 planets? What is the treasure of At Attin? So we've got that now. That was answered. It's the
Old Republic mint, sort of the money printing.
Print money. Print all the money you want.
And then who is the supervisor? We still don't know that, though. I think we're gonna go to Wizard of Oz thing. Droid sounds really probable. Is probably the leading theory.
I mean, can I try to somewhat answer that question? What I think is going on, which is like, okay, so there's a real reason that we can't see Captain Renaud's face, and there's the only reason to do that is that the kids would recognize what that face looks like. Because why would you because why would you do that? What's that choice, right? From a standpoint of filming the thing, because clearly Jod knows who that is. He wouldn't be shocked to see his face. Neither would Smee, because Smee worked for him. But you hid it from the kids. The kids can't see it, and therefore it's not like, wait, why is that person we've seen? Why is that person that's a statue, right? What is this one of the, like? Do you notice we had a headless statue?
Right.
We had the not showing the face of
Captain
Renaud. So that's my theory. Is I think that pirate planet is right. Like I think he crash landed there. He survived. Maybe it's a little unclear. And started this and started the mint up. And I don't know why. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if it's generations later. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, because if you have a mint, you're just making monopoly money, really. Even though it's like, if you're never going to leave the planet, you're just making monopoly money.
That's also a really fun, nuanced way to do pirates, is that a pirate, instead of finding some old treasure, has actually found a sort of money printing facility and has sort of reactivated it to make endless bounty, and they sit upon that trove, and that's what's better than making treasure,
Right.
You could find treasure any day. What's better than just making it all the time?
The captain's not SM-33, is he?
No, I didn't really pause on that hologram footage. I didn't really watch it too closely.
It looks like an organic, but the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, they kind of sound the same, but they have the piratey accent, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I thought it was like a Quarren or like a Mon Cala or something.
It's like kind of a wide gray face. I thought I saw some skin, but they were, super,
super,
hidden about it.
It's interesting that the Muns, Jod takes on the identity of a Mun Professor Gorlex, I think, or
Professor Gorlex.
Professor Gorlex.
They're like of Scipio,
and they even question a Mun in a mud bath. In this episode, closely, and then they go question Jod and ask him about his identity, and sort of like as if they sort of have the real details at this point, and Jod's cover's blown. And it's interesting because Muns are actually known to be part of the sort of banking clan. Hails from Munilist and those systems and things like that, and Scipio and things like that.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm thinking to myself, is that a nod to maybe where some of the fans were thinking the At Attin's sort of history is spawned from? Essentially, is the sort of banking clans and that sort of mint process. But it seems to be an older mint, right? The old Republic mint.
Yeah.
That means I imagine these planets are 500 to 1,000 years. Old.
Yeah, if they're gonna do older Republic, I want it to be more than 500 years is kind of 350, 400 years is kind of the middle of the High Republic, so I kind of want it 600 years or older, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking 500 to 1,000, so in that range, it's somewhere there is kind of when this planet was settled, and why and when these sort of production lines were put into effect.
Yeah, the Munilists could have been in charge. Like now, you've got me thinking like, are the Jewels of the Republic like some oligarchs like pet project like? Certain oligarchs that we know from our planet that have stupid, expensive pet projects. Like, it'd be interesting. Mm-hmm. I think it was just kind of cool to see Immune. I think
me too.
Kevin Scott was like going crazy about Munes over the weekend. It was either Kevin or Charles Soule. But they were like, Munilists, and like
there's a lot of great Munilist exposure in both the Acolyte and the show, which is great.
Yeah. Right. Suddenly, it's like the year of moons.
Yeah, they're back.
Yeah. Can we do a quick Acolyte corner? Because there was one smidgen of news, and it was that we got this from Jacinto, Manny Jacinto. I was going to call him Danny, and I knew I was wrong. Manny Jacinto, and he said like the original idea was going to be 3 seasons and a feature film, and that was the most interesting thing I've heard in the post-mortem of the Acolyte cancellation season 1. And my first thought about that was, I'm bummed about it because I thought it was just cooking. Season 2 was going to be great, and they introduced Plagueis, and we talked about Higo Damask, his civilian persona, Plagueis' civilian persona as that I would just pay to see. That stuff, and but when they said 3 seasons and a feature, I was like, no, you would have watered down. I don't think I would have enjoyed it because I think like there's not enough meat on that bone for that. There's a lot of good stuff there. Like I thought like you could have made a killer season 2 and like I guess maybe a season 3, but yeah.
Depends how it evolves, right? Like how they evolve the characters. The part I laughed about that was, and a feature, like
and a feature.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Maybe Manny was just a little, wanted to exaggerate it slightly. That there was a lot.
Always makes me
he
think
said
of
this is what Leslie told him.
Movie.
Like that's what Leslie, so maybe Leslie was like, pipe dreaming.
But is that? But also, what's interesting is that the Star Wars plan now? Because that's exactly what Mando's doing.
Yeah.
3 seasons and a feature. Like, is that their plan? And we're getting like 2 seasons of Ahsoka.
Actually, there was there was a very dubious rumor that they're actually considering a 4th season of Mando right now, but it's going to kind of depend on how the film goes. Because I don't and like if there's any truth to that rumor whatsoever, that means that this Mando and Grogu movie is not the like Favreau and Filoni like feature that was originally planned. And so yeah, I don't know, could be, you know, I just think Mando kind of stands alone. They struck gold there, they struck a chord. It's great storytelling. The nature of the story could go on forever, and I think so that one's got legs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's got legs. Like, it's about the characters. It's not so much about an overarching adventure story in a way. Like, it could be. Like, that's what I loved about that show is, like, if you watch, like, episode 1, it's amazing that in the third season we are deep in Mando lore.
Yeah.
Right? Like, deep in it.
Yeah.
Where you didn't have to do that. You could have done that. You could have taken that show a million directions, and you still can, right? Yeah. Because your whole thing is it's just a pair of traveling people that may get involved in something else, and then if that's not working, you write them out of it. So it really could go on forever. Yeah.
I would have loved to seen more sort of Acolyte shows, you know, on the horizon, but at the same time, it's like, you know, when does this stuff become an Ouroboros? Like even Mandoverse, it's sort of like, are we moving into the First Order and Snoke? Is it inevitable that we cover these sort of plot points and we can't explore sort of nuanced new details that we are sort of unforeseen or you didn't see coming? And the Acolyte, even like, I love the setups of A New Virgins. I thought that was so interesting. I thought the Plagueis cameo was interesting, and sort of where that goes with possibly he go to Damask and what's going on in on Coruscant and all that sort of stuff was interesting. And then the eventual sort of introduction of Palpatine could have again put even more plot in a whole, you know, another season of TV, you know, in the record books as being just incredible sort of dark side sort of writing and all that stuff that's just added to the lexicon of Star Wars, which would be so great because I think Leslie does such a great job of sort of isolating and identifying sort of the dark side approach to Star Wars, which was I think like I really haven't seen done well except for her. So I hope she comes back to do some ancient Sith stuff at some point.
Yeah, I hope so. That's the thing I'm most concerned about. Is like I hope bridges weren't burned between her and Lucasfilm, because she is so good. And I get, like, you know, we won't talk about the business side of it, but you know, you get it. You're bummed, but you get it. But like, I want her still involved in Star Wars because I really like what she does with some of the stuff.
Yeah, Grant, you just got me thinking. I mean, and we talked about it too. It's like she could essentially do a parallel adaptation of the Plagueis novel, and that would actually be 2 more seasons and a feature's worth of material right there. You know, if you were kind of parroting those things and then adding in the adventures of the twins and all that.
I almost think there's not enough room for her, like, because I think she had such big ideas, and I think if you put a lot of the Carpathian, you know, sort of lore and projected that onto what she's creating, it could just create a divide, and people might be like, oh, I like the book, and then, you know, the way she took it is a little different. Whereas if you put Leslie in like Golden Age of the Sith or the Sith Wars or something where there's a lot of room to sort of explore new ideas and involving the dark side and the seduction to the dark side, I think that could be even more exciting. So like Adam said, I'm hopeful that she's brought back for future projects that maybe give her more.
She kind of got that though. Like, she got her own era. She had a ton of runway. She had 100-year runway in her era. And I mean, you know, I guess you could say she was hemmed in, but you know, by the Plagueis novel, but that wasn't really
like, if she did it, I would want her to do her own thing. I wouldn't want to see the Carpathian book brought to live action. Like, that's not what I want.
Oh, you're saying Carpathian, but you mean Lucina.
Lucina, I'm sorry. Yeah. I got Bane.
That's Bane, yeah.
It's very easy. Those are very similar. They take very similar approaches. But what's still kind of wild to me, and we can move off of this if, you know, we don't have to spend too much time, but like the thing that's still wild to me is that, like, I get the cancellation. Don't love it, but I understand the business decision. At the same time, you have to look at your metrics, and you have to look at, you've created a character that took the internet by storm, right? It took fandom by storm, which is the Stranger. Like, people like, regardless of what that was, like that universally beloved character. And it's just kind of wild to me is you don't retool, right? That you don't bring them into and say, listen, this part's not working, this isn't working, the numbers are low, but like maybe we can do a Stranger miniseries, spin-off, like something to even gauge, like do like a direct to video, like hour special, 2-hour thing, and see, are we getting the numbers, and is it worth still exploring some of these ideas with a different focus?
Right, like that's what was kind of head scratching to me. And this, you know, there was a quote pulled from Alan Bergman, who's co-chairman of Disney Entertainment, and he pretty much just says, "As Acolyte, we were happy with our performance, but it wasn't where we needed to be given the cost structure of that title." So like a lot of business speak, but it's like that's what just surprised me is the kind of knife edge that they walk with these things. Like they want these to be high budget, high production value, stories. But they want to try and bring in new voices with fresh ideas and new eras. But it's like they're not willing to coach up.
All right,
like,
this is so.
You know what I mean?
You're keying into something that I've been fixated on for a long time now, which is probably since the beginning of the sequel trilogy, or I guess since the end of the sequel trilogy, which is that I haven't seen really anyone come forward with a holistic vision for a entirely new Star Wars story set in a distinct new era. And I don't think the brand itself is daring enough to even back a project like that. I think they're risk averse to the point where they sort of want to stick in what they know works. Wherein, if they were to bring someone aboard who has a sort of holistic new vision for Star Wars, and that were to fail in any way, that would be a huge loss for the brand and the shareholders, and so many pieces of the sort of pyramid that is Star Wars would just fall apart. And I think there's a lot of risk averse sort of attitude about Star Wars, whereas Andor is you're letting Tony Gilroy, a master of the craft, sort of do what he wants, but it is very fixed in a very fixed state within the galaxy, which is sort of the nascent fledgling rebellion fighting against the industrial complex of the Empire. It's sort of stuck in a little piece of the timeline, wherein someone can sort of write an incredibly important revolutionary piece, and that's great. But it's there's not a real daring attitude towards establishing a new story in a new era. I just don't think that's there at the tippity top of the brand.
So you don't think that's what they did with Leslie Headland exactly?
No, I don't. So I think
because it's a new era. I mean,
I think the Divergence is a redundant plot point. It's sort of a recycling.
I didn't say anything about the story, but I mean, like that's what they tried to do that, like. Right, like they tried to. They found Leslie. They had a new visionary. They gave her own era, and they're like, okay, create new content in your own distinct era.
I don't think so. I think it was just kind of a fun philosophical exploration of Jedi fallacy. Is sort of what that show was, and I just think that's all that show really intended to be.
That's what it ended up being. I mean, because this is the thing, right? It's like the metrics. It's like Bergman was talking about metrics, but it's like if you line it up with Andor didn't do much better, but like universally Andor, it was just done better. And so like to me, it seems like they tried to give Leslie the runway to be like, you can flesh out this whole world, you have 100 years to play with, you play in this space, it's nothing, you don't have to worry about crossing over with anything else really. And I just don't think she did it. Like it cost too much money and the metrics weren't there. And then ultimately I think there's like what they're not saying is the taste factor is what you're saying, Grant. It's just like the story was too pithy. She just didn't sort of meet the challenge in a way that
I think there's incredibly satisfying aspects to the Acolyte that I was deeply interested in, which is the seduction to the dark side, the stranger.
Yeah. To me, I meant like to Lucasfilm, like Lucasfilm wasn't satisfied, but we were.
Performances were. I think the show hinged on some lead performances that just weren't there, and it's hard for me to even say that because I admire all the performances in that show. But it's like I think if you wanted the show to continue, I think the lead characters would have had to be punched up quite a bit for the show to keep going.
That's what I'm saying. With like, why not? Like, if you've already put this sunk cost and you want to create this like new series with like fresh ideas and a fresh feel that we've never seen before, like, why not just coach her up? Like, was she that far off? Like, I'm not saying for me. Like for me, I enjoyed it.
I don't think she needs any coaching. I think it was. It's just more of the stranger's done really well. Other characters need a little bit more work. I don't think I think if there was more time, maybe. I don't even know maybe more production support. I think it could have been easier.
Yeah. my 2 cents about it is I don't think they let her off the leash enough. I feel like there was a lot of, you can do this but not this, you can do that but not that. So it's that, like, you get a little bit of taste and then they have to play it safe here and there. And then the other part of it is not to get too much behind inside baseball, but like Bob Iger came in like in the middle of this whole thing and came in for all of Disney with a very specific game plan, which is we need to extremely cut down on what we're putting on Disney Plus and put more in the theaters. So it's not for nothing that Acolyte season got canceled and suddenly we have like 4 new movies coming to theater, right? So I think Acolyte is more of a victim of a change in leadership and a change in vision of what Disney Plus is than anything about The Acolyte, to be fair. I think if The Acolyte came out 2 years ago, it would 100% have had a second season.
Yeah, like, I mean, if I was an executive, I would have greenlit it for second season. But that's what I just find, it's like, it's really kind of a knife edge with these series. And it's like, yes, it's it is a business and it's metrics driven, but we've seen
it's data driven. So it's the point of like the ideas, they're not, maybe they're overlooking some of the ideas.
Ideas don't matter, numbers matter.
Some of the ideas are incredibly fresh in the Acolyte, and you want to see an execution and development of those ideas.
Yeah. Right, and you think it's going to build numbers and pull people in with the thoughtful. I mean, you watch shows start so weak on season 1. And then if you build it, but that's not the streaming model to be. You got to get them.
It's just wild they didn't
give
her any more runway. To me, it was like, it's like if there were things that Lucasfilm didn't love about it beyond the numbers, like there's ways to fix those things. You've got nothing but resources and people that want to help, and and professionals that have been doing these stories for a very long time that's surrounding her, like to support her and do like whatever you want to do. But they just didn't do that. They just sort of like cut bait. And I mean, maybe we'll get a feature. If they're just if what you're saying is true, Adam, and it's just like, no, we're restructuring and we're not going to have any more. We're really going to cut down on our live action videos.
Well, we know we have the mangled Dawn of the Jedi / Prime Jedi film on the horizon, right? And he's a complete he's complete he's done the circuit with a complete unknown at this point. So now he's moved on to Star Wars, I imagine. And maybe everything's on hold for this sort of, and what we're talking about, this sort of brave new world of Star Wars, right? This whole new horizon of Mangled's going to envision an ancient past for the Jedi.
Yeah,
and that's going to come with a lot of new art direction and an entirely sort of new sort of palette that we've never seen before, which could be really interesting and take maybe the whole brand sort of getting behind that initiative, which is interesting because they've got the Rey film. I mean, Mandoverse seems like safe, territory to continue storytelling because you're just gonna abut Luke's temple, Kylo Ren, Snoke, the First Order. You have a lot of territory you can kind of climb into and explore the different sort of areas of plot that you have there. But what's more interesting to me is sort of the idea of you've got that project going on, and then you've got the idea of a Rey film, and then you've also this third sort of idea of this ancient past sort of story.
Yeah. And
what do you get behind as a brand? I think it comes down to literally the screenplay. I think it's just, what does the script look like for the Prime Jedi, and what does the script look like for the Rey film? The brand should get behind this sort of stronger story, and hopefully there's some risk that's taken with whatever comes next, because I'm hopeful to see new Star Wars where we don't know what's going to happen and doesn't depend on any legacy details, and sort of does what A New Hope did, really, like sort of like send us into the galaxy without knowing what's at stake at first, and learning about this galaxy and the new world building sort of elements that they bring to that.
Yeah, I totally agree with all those points. I actually stumbled across someone on Reddit that was like, just give me the Grogu series 500 years into the future, where he's like a Mando Jedi doing whatever. And I'm like, honestly, not a bad idea. The only reason I push up against that is because, like, I don't want to know the state of the galaxy 500 years in the future. Like, I want that race series to have some hope and to have some unknown. And like, if it's already, if it's just like a feudal galaxy again in 500 years, it's just going to bum me out watching the Rey movie.
They did that stuff.
Star Wars,
they did that stuff in the comics, and it was so upsetting and just disinteresting when they did this whole 100 years in the future.
I woke up in a cold sweat the other night.
Not fun. Cade? Was it Cade? Cade or Cade Skywalker? Death stick smoking Jedi.
Yeah, that wasn't. It didn't. Yeah, I think everyone I've talked to about sort of those comics has given me a sort of a mixed reaction, and it makes me think that maybe we don't continue with the Skywalkers, especially make it another sort of blonde male character of any kind. But nonetheless, it's I did wake up in the cold sweat the other day and think to myself, how do you bring back Pedro Pascal? How do you take the helmet off and give Pedro Pascal another scene?
Yeah.
Without the helmet on, and to me it is, and it's almost sacrilege to say, but it's like it maybe is getting Grogu back to the planet where the Yoda species comes from. Even though I
cannot believe you're saying this.
You would never do this. But if John Favreau and Filoni were to do it, I think they're maybe the only ones who can do it. They're kind of like.
I'm taking down this timestamp, Grant, because I'm going to play it for you when you get it, and you're furious.
No, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, what if you did?
But I just feel like if you were to give Pedro one more scene without the helmet on, it's like, what is that scene?
I mean, you could do it without giving away anything, right? Because you could do it like reverse ET, where basically he's saying goodbye to Grogu. You don't really see the planet all that much, but you do see him kind of walk off, and you see Yoda figures in the distance, right? Like and a couple of Yaddles in there too, and it's just like
that's fun.
Yeah, I was just.
But I can't believe it.
I know.
I can't believe it. That's
I would never
wild.
want to see this, but I almost think it's the only thing you can do to. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know what you can do with Grogu other than he continues on and becomes like Rey's first student. Because that's the only thing.
Literally the only thing.
He can be the Mandalore
if you're not going to.
They can just sort of soldier
put on weird Mando armor, and that's just super awkward to me as a fan. But to me, it's that's too awkward. So he needs to do these other avenues, which is join the process or go back to your home world. It's almost like there's two avenues for Grogu, which is sad. The back to your home world avenue is such a heartstring. That's such a pull on the heartstrings too. I could see that scene being we're all just leaving the theater just weeping, but I don't know.
And my headcanon is that they're Virginses. They just sort of appear somewhere in the galaxy.
that species?
That species. They just kind of, because there's never more than one or two, and it's they just they're so strong in the Force, and they live so long, they just sort of some sort of, I don't know, the Force just sweats them out. I don't know.
That's just sweats them out.
That's an interpretation.
It took a while. It took a while for that to sink through my head. I just accepted it as that's no thing to say.
I was like, wait a second. So they just appear out of the ether? Okay.
Yeah, right. Total Virginses. There's just and then there's a baby, or they there's a tree and just they hatch. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they're the pure virgins.
Or a Force egg just appears, and then it's you got a baby. Yeah.
I did dabble with the idea that
someone found
that Yoda in this episode. I watched.
Yeah. There we go. So can we bring this? I want to bring us back with an observation.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So, and it builds on something we've talked about before. He uses the Force a lot in this episode, a lot more than we've seen him. And I feel like every episode he's using it more and more. I think we're getting to this idea that he is stretching his Force
muscles,
muscles, right? And he's so much in this episode. So I'm wondering if we get him. We'll talk about how it ends, but if we get him being able to do higher level stuff like a Jedi mind trick or Force lightning if he's going evil or something, right? Yeah, I don't see Force lightning, but maybe a
Force
Jedi mind
deflection,
trick.
A little blaster deflection would be fun.
Yep. In a key moment, right?
When they almost get decapitated in the booby traps, and I guess we should probably talk about the booby traps.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, let's talk about booby traps.
I mean, that could have been Force related. They made it look just sort of like a comic beat where him and SM-33 just drop. They see the lights and drop. But it's
And he saw the scoring on the wall. So I read that more of an Indiana Jones, him logically piecing it together.
But it was still close. It was a near thing.
Yeah. Also, the reverse
spike trap.
The reverse spike trap. Good. I love that so much.
Yeah. And the guy thinking it's safe, and then he gets a blaster bolt in the chest and sucked up into the spikes. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a fun new way to do booby tracks. traps and the acid. I mean, the swirling acid whirlpool was just terrifying.
I loved how many skeletons were in there. Like a lot of skeletons. There was like 10.
Right, a lot of skeletons. I love that this show is more kid-centric, right, which I love, but also not bloodless, and it really is reminding me of the 80s. And I know that's what they're going for. It reminds me of 80s, like, kids' movies where, like, people were dying left and right in 80s kids' movies, right? Like, I mean, they still are in Disney movies. You watch them. I've had to explain to my 4-year-old so many times why the parents are dead. I mean, maybe I'm inevitably trading for her for when I leave this world, and she'll be like, yeah, it's like, they always die. Parents
right, and
always
when he has Smee slice into the data port and activate the acid on the pirates who are right outside the door, you hear
the screams.
Their screams and shouting Silvo as they die, basically.
Well, that's the question. Is like, did they die or did they like run away?
I think a couple died.
I don't think
honestly.
We've seen the last.
Did they get Urkel?
I think a couple.
Do you think they killed Urkel?
Urkel survived. Yeah, I think Urkel survived.
I hope so. I don't know. I hope.
Yeah, I know Urkel smoked that guard, man. He was the one that sent him up into the reverse spike pit.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because I know he's Urkel, but I just don't like it, and I don't know if I think he's a bad actor or I think he's just Urkel.
I think it's because the stakes are Urkel's chasing John, and it's just like, okay, like I mean, it's all right. It's not too threatening, but it's threatening.
As a fan of Mark Hamill, I feel really bad when actors are typecast, right? Like I hate that, but I'm like, I cannot get that.
I'm gonna maybe give you a little off the hook. Get you off the hook a little bit, Adam, because I didn't know that was Urkel, and he still felt weird to me.
It's just not good,
it
right?
Had
it's just
that
not
sort
good,
of like,
and I feel bad.
Why do these mods feel so wrong? It's like sort of like it is like immersion breaking, and he's kind of immersion breaking because it's like the mods look janky, and I just like he just doesn't look right for some reason. I don't know. But just in the same way that the mods sort of was kind of like didn't fit.
I don't mind, but it makes Brutus seem like weak too, where he's like, here, I'll just have all the henchies go attack John. I'm like,
also, this is your number 2.
Yeah. It's also Brutus's number 2, and it's interesting because like Brutus is kind of scary, but even then, it's like a pretty practical sort of werewolf like headpiece. That's interesting. It's cool, but like. Not enough has been done with him to make him truly threatening. Like if he were to like get more limber and pounce at someone, like that would be terrifying. But like at this point, he's kind of a stiff humanoid.
Well, I think that's kind of it. There's nothing threatening about.
Nothing really threatening about what's chasing Todd, except for I think Pocket's pretty scary looking. I was terrified by Pocket.
Pocket is, it's like equal parts scary and sexy, but maybe that's just more.
I think it's a lot about you, Adam, because I was watching that scene just being like, those eyes are haunting.
I was looking at her teeth.
I know.
Her teeth were
those eyes are. I was like,
Adam was lost.
I know, like those eyes are haunting. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, I watched the movie Shallow Grave with Ewan McGregor. It's a Danny Boyle film, like way too young, and I've had a weird, a weird attachment to Kelly McDonald. So yeah, she's so good. Trainspotting 2. It's she's a Danny Boyle.
And then a Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah,
No Country. She's at the wife.
Yeah, she killed it. Very good.
So good.
So what else happened on Demon's Rest, Battle World, Lanupa?
Sorry, she also does the voice of Merida from Brave. So she's the lead character. Sorry for the, I just again, having a 4-year-old, I'm aware.
You can definitely hear that.
Yeah.
Moving on,
Lanupa, aka Demon's Rest, aka Battle World. Did you get that on the fly?
Yeah, I love the juxtaposition of this used to be like a world of pirate battling and hidden treasure, and now it's just this complete spa sort of makeover.
Yeah, but they kept the name. They're like, it's the spa at Skull Ridge Mountain.
Yeah,
Skull Ridge Mountain. Yeah, I love it.
The bit with like the sort of air traffic control and security ships was so great.
Yeah,
so good.
So reminiscent also of Cloud City, which is another kind of affluent area, right? Of the twin pod cloud cars coming up against the Millennium Falcon.
You see some luxury yachts, I think, flying around too, and stuff, which is very.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's one that looks a lot like the Crimson Dawn's pleasure yacht. What's that one called? Crimson Spire? Something Spire?
Sorry.
No, I will have it in a second. Just
Grant will have it.
Yeah, I'll have it.
We'll
there's a lot of that. I think
pop it out.
Yeah. All right. Before we get into like the final scene, because there's a lot there, I just wanted to do a couple KB notes.
Yeah, I was actually about to say, yeah.
One, she doesn't want to see naked people. Like, why didn't she want to go to the spa? I think naked people made her feel uncomfortable.
That's interesting. I was wondering if we hear in episode 2, her parents are talking about she has illnesses. Does she have her inhaler? Or they say something like that. So they say something like that of like she doesn't have her medication. Like they were like very like the helicopter-y parents were kind of how they were portraying them. So I was just wondering if like something about the atmosphere, but I like your take more because that's more interesting, right? That she felt very uncomfortable. And I also like that we don't get a clear answer as to why in this episode, right? There's nothing that I don't think I missed anything. I watched it twice.
That Crimson Dawn ship's called the First
Reason,
Light,
but she's...
Oh, the one I found was the
First
Vermilion.
Light. All right.
Oh, sorry. The Vermilion's correct
both.
too.
Yeah, Vermilion.
First Light is actually what's in Solo. Vermilion's what's in the Crimson Reign comics.
Was First Light the Dryden Voss's ship?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that one's dope.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of. It kind of looks similar to the one that we see right when they're flying in. Yeah, I love that. I love that ship design. I love it in Solo, just flying around in atmosphere.
Yeah, that's so cool. That film has some really fun shots.
Yeah, just like nothing else you would ever see. Yeah, we're talking about. Yeah, never mind. This is gonna be a tangent that we don't need to do. It was just a Christmas conversation about actors who you would think break a movie and don't, and that's always my Woody Harrelson. Solo is. I was so bummed when he got cast.
His name Tobias
was Tobias Beckett, and I'm like, I hate everything about this. And then like 10 minutes in this movie, I'm like,
really hurt
favorite character is Tobias Beckett. It's so good.
You could probably attach that to a lot of Woody Harrelson roles. You're just like, are you sure? And then you watch it and you're like, oh man, he is such a treasure.
I just think Val death was so offensive to me. I get so upset about that.
I know. That felt very much that felt like we lost. We went so long in shooting, we couldn't we lost her, so we had to write her off.
Like she have to go to another movie or something. I was so.
I kept waiting for her to come back in that first viewing. I'm like,
she's Viper droids. They're no joke.
Nope,
they're no joke.
They'll pin you
down. All right.
KB. But KB also is clutch. I love that little moment where she
the wrench
takes the wrench and kind of figures out where the steam's going to come out. Yeah,
that was a great bit.
That was good.
There's also so let's get to the last scene. They get in, they figure it out, and there's a standoff. And just to stick with KB here, there's a tear. Did you see the tear running down KB's face when her friend was had a knife to her throat?
Yeah, that was
subtle,
harrowing, I think, for everyone involved, the kids, the audience. I was just like, wait, what? Jod is holding a knife up to Fern? And I didn't know
you often don't see a knife held to a child's
do this right
throat.
now?
It was very, And her line of you're an adult, we're kids, you can't do this is such a harrowing line too, because I'm just like, oh, it's too real. It's too real.
When
I don't
he's
like this.
approaching her, and
I liked
it. Just say you yield.
Yeah.
Just say you yield. And he approaching her, and I was like, and approaching. I was like, he's not gonna physically hurt the kids or anything like that. And then when he just grabs Fern and pulls his scimitar out, I was like, oh wow, this is really where we're going with this. And if he were a Jedi in the past at any point, I just don't think a Jedi is capable of this. And therefore I kind of stand by my scoundrel with the Force sort of thing.
I definitely is that.
Yeah, he's that currently for sure. I mean, if we're
episode 5
though, episode 5 a little bit.
I'm just saying it's.
You got 3 episodes to go. I don't think he's going to turn into suddenly the antagonist. I have a lot of questions because if his plan is just to go and raid At Attin, he doesn't need the kids because he has a location now. The kids serve no purpose whatsoever if that's his plan, but he clearly wants them alive. He doesn't tell Smee to kill them. He tells them to take them, right, and put them in prison. Part of me is wondering if he's not clearly a good guy, but a lot of this episode, and this may be me projecting based on the day I had with my child when I was watching the show, is when he yells at them when they're playing and won't pay attention. And Carly said the same thing. I'm like, that was too real for me. I didn't yell at my kid, but I felt like that rage during Christmas. And I'm like, calm down. Just listen to what I'm saying. And I'm internally, I'm saying all that. Externally, I'm like, sure, Charlie,
come over here.
Yeah. Gentle parenting with also consequences. Anyway, so part of this is I think he might be starting to figure out is Fern can't be kid can't be a captain, and she's making mistakes, and she's really good and she's really smart, but she's a kid and she's making mistakes. And I think he was just I need to take control of the situation, or I'm going to get all these kids killed. And if that means I have to threaten their lives in order to get to be the captain, that's what I need to do. So I'm wondering if it's a little bit of protection, but also like, I still think he's a scoundrel. Like I still think he's bringing him to this planet because similar to Han Solo, he's expecting a big reward, right? I feel like he's thinking it's the way out. But that's my theory about what's going on here. But I don't know. Could be that he actually did turn.
No, that's the way I watched it. So the first time I watched it, I was with you guys, and it was just that emotional, like, oh my God, you jerk. Like, you see him take that moment, that beat to think about it, and you're like, you're going to make good on your deal, right? And he's just like, takes that really long beat, and then he's like, all right, no, we're going to do this. But the second time I was like, was he just trying to protect the kids? And like, when you watch it, he never like hurts the kids. He just threatens them with violence.
And he says it so many times to her before he actually grabs her.
Just yield.
Like, just yield. Yeah. Like, please don't. I mean, part of it was like, please don't make me do this. Like, I really don't want to do it this way.
Yeah. And then assuming they didn't, go down to a pit and land on spikes, like, they're going to be fine. But
crazy move, crazy decision. Where I'm like, what are you doing? Like, there's got to be spikes down
It's
there.
a genius of the show because you see, like, the kids feel like he's gonna kill us, blah blah blah, and then they like, panic. But but it's like no, not necessarily. You just could go along. He's still gonna take you with them, and like, but they're just kids. Like, I just thought it was kind of good. It was great writing.
I think he's like, the fun's over. This adventure is now turned extremely dangerous.
Yeah,
like,
it's life or death now.
I need to
like,
take control.
It was kind of cute before, but.
Yeah, and not to discount you, Grant, not necessarily because it's him being a Jedi. This doesn't
Absolutely
feel like a Jedi
not.
move, right?
Yeah.
Like, it feels more extreme than what a Jedi would do. It's still a scoundrel move, right? It's a Han Solo move in a lot of ways, right? Of just like, I still want my money, and this is the easiest way to get my money, and I need to get these kids because if I bring dead kids or no kids back, they're not going to give me my money.
And
I am hopeful that he's a villain for maybe the next episode, the way I think the next episode could play out, which could be very obvious, is that like he chasing down the kids in a sort of nefarious way, but he's actually really there to fight the pirates with the lightsaber and save the kids and be this altruistic figure. And I would like one episode of him just being the villain. Like,
I agree. I want them to play this out.
It'll be fun.
Chasing the kids down, but he's really trying to help the kids, but it appears very villainous. Like, I would like that a lot.
100%. I don't want an instantaneous turn back to good or explanation good. I want them to tease it out a little bit. And I mean, next week is written by was it Mung-John Weisner, who wrote this episode. So this is the two that are not written. So I'm guessing it's going to be totally very similar, and probably I'm wondering if this is kind of almost like a mini movie in the middle of this thing, where it's just kind of one continuous story. Which actually the show is done. Most of these episodes start directly after the end of the last episode. So I'm wondering if this is just going to be.
We also know he needs to find another way out too, and I mean the kids seem to have found a secret door, and I wonder if he just follows them down there, and I wonder if the pirates are in pursuit, and I imagine that lightsaber is going to be used on someone or something in the future, and I got to imagine it's the pirates, and it's Jod beating down some pirates with the lightsaber. But when he got that lightsaber at the end, I just thought of Ben.
Thank you.
I was just like, Ben popped off his couch. He just stood up. He just saluted the
my note is ignition blue balls, because I was like, first of all, like, he caught it, and I was like, yes, and you hear it light, but you don't see it.
Black.
Oh, you don't see it. It was such a great tease, but it was a tease where I was just like, I was just great. Like, and as I watched it the second time, I was so like, because the first time, I was like in bed, I was like, like I was so like I was happy, but I was so like I didn't get to see it.
It doesn't seem like it's the first time he's held a lightsaber.
Sure doesn't.
And it was
that's one
like the writers know it. Like, they know we want this to happen. Like, you want to see Jedi. I mean, it's Jod, but I wanted to call him his real name Jude. Like, you want to see Jedi Jude Law, right? Like, and they're teasing the monster. They're just sort of like, oh, is he a Jedi? I don't know. And it's just sort of like they haven't like revealed the Jedi version of him yet. And I mean, I'm here for it, and obviously a lot of people are here for it too. And the writers are like, it's going to be awesome when he's like wielding a lightsaber.
I think we're going to learn a lot. This next episode's we're going to see a lot, and we're going to understand a lot more about Jod, in my opinion.
They're not going to do. Oh God, they're not going to do the flashback episode, are they? In the middle of this thing, which is always my pet peeve with shows.
I think.
Right. This is just going to be straight propelling forward. That was the thing, not to bring back to Acolyte Corner, but boy, the number of flashbacks.
They could do it.
They
could do it because they've got 3 more episodes, right? 6, 7, 8. Well, they could do 1 flashback and then 7 to get out, and 8
to do a whole episode. I think you can do it tastefully, like Andor and sort of the flashbacks.
Yeah, I don't mind flashbacks in the middle of a story, but if you just do the entire episode run as a flashback and not move the main plot forward, I
think you could catch the saber ignite, and it can be the ignition could be a graphic match or a sound cue match cut to him igniting the first saber ever, and when that experience was. And
that would be I would go for
like
that.
a recast of like a young.
To do that, yeah.
Like the whole episode starts with a loud ignition noise, and it's literally when he first held a lightsaber, whatever that means.
Yeah. Or de-aged. De-aged Jod in the Clone Wars.
He's, I was gonna say the age,
anything, right? Anything you can imagine, right?
We keep doing the age math. It's not right that he could be the kid that goes, Master Skywalker.
No,
could it be? Because he sure looks like a little Jude Law, maybe.
Dude, that is
be
incredible. If that's the case,
he effectively escapes
genius.
Like Darth Vader, like in the thing.
He's the kid who flinched when Vader
exactly. Where they screamed at the kid off screen to scare the crap out of him. One of my least favorite and most favorite moments.
Oh, really? Is that true? They just screamed at the kid.
Yeah, they yelled at him. They did. They yelled. They made a loud sound off scene when that happens, and that's why he flinches.
That's a big flinch. That reads on camera, that's crazy.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm.
You guys talked about the whim scene with the lightsaber, but like the lightsaber dork in me, so I mean, we saw 2 seconds of that lightsaber on the pedestal, and I had already, I'm like, that's a High Republic make. We have a sheathed emitter, and blah blah blah. And so when they just showed the thing, I was like, and my wife can attest to this, I was like, oh man, you're holding the thing upside down. And you could see
saw
it.
That's
wow,
amazing.
Ben,
I love you so much. I love you so much. I love that you completely got that. That's
I was
so
like,
you.
be careful, bro. Be careful, bro. And then, I mean, this is also why, I think Jod really does care about these kids. Is he's like, yo, be careful. That's not a toy. You got it. That's very dangerous. And then.
Yeah, he's not afraid that he's gonna get cut up by a lightsaber. He's afraid Wim's gonna take off a foot.
Yeah, or worse. And
I just love how it goes. It scatters across the floor there and sort of just bounces and sparks. Thought that was so cool because we kind of haven't seen a lightsaber just fly across the floor. It still, with blade ignited. That was really cool.
It was right, and then it went out. I mean, and there is a little there's that dynamic of the Force wielder and the Kyber crystals. And when he calls to the lightsaber and it comes to his hand and it sings, it's there's a little, I don't know, a little serendipity, a little Force serendipity happening there.
Yeah, I mean, have we seen a lightsaber Force pull by a dark side user?
Yeah, I'm sure Chimere did it a bunch of times.
Oh yeah, Maul. I think Darth Maul in the Phantom Menace. I'm pretty sure you see it.
No, he kicked away Obi-Wan's lightsaber. Maybe he pulled his own lightsaber.
Because it's
I thought he pulled his own.
He might have. But I feel like the 2 times we've ever seen it, which I don't mind, it means one of 2 things. But I the 2 big moments that always stick out in my mind are, Luke and Rey, and both those are extremely big hero moments, right? And so I love that this is kind of just again giving you the sound. It's just fascinating. It just gives you that hero feel, even though I know that he's being a villain at the moment. So I don't know if it's just kind of. Hiding that, or if it's supposed to be just, subverting that moment. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Rey Finn, the thruple lightsaber pull was probably the most epic lightsaber pull ever.
I still get choked. I still get choked up when she pulls that lightsaber at the end of Force Awakens. I still get emotional. Just so well. I think 90% of that is John Williams, right. But still, it's so well done.
It doesn't count though.
Yeah,
we have to take him for granted.
It's a big scene, and it's a great hero moment. It's one of the greatest hero moments in all of Star Wars for sure.
Yeah.
Man. Jedi Finn. I need that. I need that in my blood.
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right, man. I mean, that pretty much covers all of my notes on this bad boy. Anything else? I mean, I think we talked about what could be the future, what could be Jod's thing. I mean, Any chance the lightsaber is red and bleeds the crystal in the next episode? Probably not, right?
I don't think we need to see that again. That. If I have notes, it's maybe seeing that again would be tough.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think again. I think my final theory is that he's a scoundrel with the Force, and he's not a Jedi. And there's all these setups towards him being a Jedi, but they're all misdirections essentially.
I think the best.
I like that.
The best I'm gonna get is like next episode we're gonna get some Jedi-ish moments with him, and then it'll be back to the kids and other.
So you're thinking Padawan robes, like that's where your head's at?
I mean, I think he could be full Jedi Knight. Like age-wise, he could be in his 20s.
Robes, regardless. Like there's robes in the future for John.
No. I don't think they're gonna do the flashback. I think we're just gonna carry on here. But it's like we're gonna see him wielding a lightsaber with competence in the next episode. That's what I think, and that's like as best as I'm gonna get for my super, my basic fandom.
Yeah, I don't ever see him embracing being a Jedi. That just seems so not that character. Like, I mean, maybe he's just... I mean, it'd be interesting, again, to kind of reintroduce that character into the universe of just like, there are people who are Force sensitive, who use the Force, who are not Jedi, right? And are not Sith and evil. Like, he's, chaotic neutral or lawful neutral. I don't know. Like, right? Like, he's not a bad guy, but, I don't know. I just want that. Like, I just want someone who just can use the Force, and it's not a gray Jedi. He doesn't use it for like any purpose other than he's a pirate who uses the Force,
and he's kind of using it to.
He's good with melee weapons, so why not be good with a lightsaber? I mean, it's not outlandish that he'd be talented with another melee weapon when he's already taken a sort of dagger he's found on the ship. I mean,
don't you want the scene with like Luke trying to recruit him?
No.
And him just be like, no. Like, just,
that would be pretty great.
Yeah. Not all of us are meant to be Jedi.
And, I would like a redemption arc for him. A little walk off into the sunset sort of thing. Or maybe he stays on At Attin with them and they forgive him, because he's, if they can sort of push him into Han Solo territory and not like like Kylo Ren territory.
Yeah,
or it's a win-win. He frees the planet from the sort of auto
droid
the surveillance state, in which it's currently repressed under.
And doesn't even realize.
And then he also gets some gold out of it. He also gets some like Old Republic mint out of it. Yeah, I think that could be a complete win-win at the end of this. And then he could fly off into the sun. I think the Onyx Cinders is his. I think Smee is his. I think he's a reoccurring Disney World character at this point. I think him and Smee could go on and to be, these reoccurring characters that are in comics, in the Disney, theme parks. And I think if he just flies off into the stars at the end of this, it makes perfect sense as being this Force-sensitive pirate who's out there gallivanting, having great adventures.
Yeah.
We know Maz Kanata has some sort of relation to the Force. I almost think it's a huge crime Maz hasn't shown up in this show yet. I'm like, where's Maz Kanata?
You never know. They could pull that card.
I'm holding out hope for Maz Kanata appearance at some point.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating for her to pop up. Can you imagine an SM-33 droid showing up at like Galaxy's Edge? That thing would be terrifying.
It's gonna be huge.
Cool. That would freak me out.
But we're a pirate ride that just translates perfectly as almost Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's Star Wars, essentially.
There is not to beat this dead horse, but there were supposed to be 3 Star Wars rides, and there's a section, if you look at the Star Wars, the Disney or Hollywood Studios thing, there's a giant area that was supposed to be, and it's just nothing being used. I'm like, give us the 3rd Star Wars ride, just do it.
Pirate.
Yeah, the Onyx Cinder. Let's go.
Yeah, I love that. Like, it'd be perfect. It was supposed to be, actually, the rumors was it was supposed to be a speeder bike ride, which would have been amazing, similar to like the Avatar ride mechanics that they use.
That'd be fun.
Animal Kingdom. But I'm still sticking with. He starts in a jail cell. He ends in a jail cell, right? With hope, but I've got
a third option here that just popped into my head because the plan that we talked about at the beginning of this episode that the parents are working on, it's contacting the High Republic for help, and New Republic. Thank you. Sorry. And
no, that's all right.
I could see a situation where they're like, they do get involved. And then, we get at the end and they save the day. They defeat the pirates that have found this place. And the New Republic sort of give him the ultimatum. They're like, you can stay here and be a citizen on this planet, and we're going to keep this planet hidden, and we're going to leave, or we're going to take, like, but if you fly off this planet ever, we will take you to jail, and you will spend the rest of your life in jail. But because he, like, saved that planet and his fate's, like, linked with it, like, he's, like, forced to be like, what are you even chasing, Jod? Like, do you just want your freedom to run around and, like, harm people? Or are you willing to take unlimited bounty and just be a citizen on a safe planet in peacetime? And he has to make that choice.
Interesting. Yeah, I could.
But I think he would probably just stick around and be the local Jedi protecting that planet.
I mean, I think he would stick around while working on a plan to escape. Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, like, gallivanting through the the galaxy on the Onyx Cinder, being a pirate, is fun, but it's sort of like, we know what a pirate's life is, and it's like not an easy life. And it's like, is he going to get another crew? And it's just like, you're just starting the cycle all over again. And like, Han had that option, and he thought, he's like, well, I got to pay off my life debt. But it's like, was he going to get back into bounty hunting and smuggling and all that? And he just like ended up, taking the rebellion path, which is good for him. And like, maybe he can actually be a defender of peace and justice on this like planet that has new leadership and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. But I think we are going to see the New Republic at some point in this show as well.
So wait, so when those ships get destroyed by the pirates, like, where are the X-Wings? I thought like X-Wings would respond to that immediately. When the Lanupa sort of security crafts get destroyed, I was like, would X-Wings not just descend on this place immediately?
They're spread pretty thin.
Yeah.
They
are. I mean, we do see them right in episode 3, right? They do show up there. It'd be interesting. I feel like maybe because of Lanupa reeks of a place that like they don't really want the New Republic looking that close at them, so they have their private security.
But then where are they sourcing their helmets from?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Oh, because they're kind of like, maybe it's just the style.
Yeah, helmets definitely look coded, like security.
Right, because
totally.
Canto Bight kind of has, they have more like stormtrooper helmets without faces sort of thing.
Yeah, I would argue that Lanupa helmets are even closer to sort of New Republic helmets.
Yeah.
They definitely are.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's not really a lot of policing in the galaxy. Maybe this is the Outer Rim, this is the far reaches. There's probably not a lot of New Republic presence, I guess. But it's interesting that like when there's injustices in the galaxy, it's sort of like they're not answered by the New Republic, especially in this circumstance.
Yeah,
there has to be a Star Wars interactive galactic map that's current. That like every time a new planet drops, they like there's a new point on the galactic map that we can go to and check it out. It's a crime that it's not a thing.
That's a really cool sort
what
of
is
idea.
Pablo even doing?
Yeah.
What is Pablo Hidalgo even doing if he's not doing that?
I'm sure they have that internally. I'm sure there's sort of a data bank of I'm sure there's a more robust. I would argue that there's probably a far more robust data bank internally than we have.
Sure.
Right, but like, can't we have it now? It's it's public domain. Like, give it to us.
We should have the nice things, I think.
We should. I think they're just so afraid of this, like everything has to be canon thing, that if they have to, for whatever reason, alter the map, that fans are going to freak out when like you moved something a parsec over.
Could be.
Things have moved already, I think, since the first that we've seen in the
Disney era,
even since the Disney acquisition,
Yeah, definitely.
So
for sure.
Cool, man. Rad. Well, that was super great. I hope everyone had a good Life Day. Glad we could get this in this week. And only a few more days till we get to cover episode 6. So that's going to be super. So thanks for hanging out in the spa with us. And Catholips, he's very relaxed right now.
Oh God! Wait!
Oh no, Adam's leg! Adam!
You can't leave until we talk Catholips for a second.
Just my new favorite character,
like a Cthulhu reference in the middle of Star Wars. Yeah. I'm there. That's all. I just wanted to point
out. And just the matter of fact nature of them. Basically, it seems like it's a giant
monster.
Gonna kill them, and then they come back.
They come back.
He just loves a good story.
A story. Yeah, I just love it. That's all. We can move on. Catholips is like my new favorite. The name is awesome. I love the creature design. I love how much shadow he's in.
It's just like the line when like all the kids in unison after he drops them down the pit. They're like, "Thanks, Catholips."
Thanks, Catholips. Yeah.
He's so great.
That species as a Jedi would be just overpowered.
Oh, wild.
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of like that. Like we haven't seen like a sentient, because it's even bigger than a hut. Like a sentient.
It's bigger than a boar gullet.
In live action, it's bigger than a boar gullet. It's not quite the size of a Bendu, right?
But in the same class as a Bendu.
It is right, and it's just like having a mud bath.
Yeah, and he's like, I can tell he's going to betray you. And it's like, did he betray them, or did he just take control of the situation? Yeah.
We shall see. Next week. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah.
Much shall be answered next week.
Indeed. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for guzzling with us at the Cantina. Let's do it again next week on
Cantina Chronicles.